Welcome, dear friends, to a heartwarming tale of unexpected love, the resilience of the human spirit, and the extraordinary power of hope. Enjoy the story.
The sterile white walls of Dr. Jameson's office seemed to close in on Mark Thompson as he sat, hands clenched tightly in his lap, listening to words no parent should ever have to hear. "I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson," Dr. Jameson said, his voice heavy with regret. "We've exhausted all treatment options for Emily. Her body simply isn't responding anymore." Mark's throat felt dry, his voice barely a whisper as he asked, "What? What does that mean exactly?" Dr. Jameson leaned forward, compassion filling his eyes. "It means that barring a miracle, Emily likely has less than a year left. I'm so sorry, Mark. We've done everything we can." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Mark's little girl, his precious Emily, the spitting image of her mother with her big blue eyes and golden curls. How could this be happening? "But she's only 10. Mark choked out, tears stinging his eyes. "There has to be something else we can try. Some experimental treatment. Anything." Dr. Jameson shook his head sadly. "I wish there was. At this point, the best thing you can do for Emily is to make her remaining time as comfortable and joyful as possible." Mark stumbled out of the hospital, the bright California sun a stark contrast to the darkness that had settled over his heart. He found himself in the parking lot, leaning against his car, struggling to catch his breath. "God, Karen," he whispered, thinking of his late wife. "How am I supposed to do this without you?" His phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. Seeing his business partner Greg's name flash on the screen, he considered ignoring it, but reality crashed back in. He had bills to pay, a mortgage, and Emily's mounting medical expenses. With a heavy sigh, he answered, "Hey, Greg." "Mark, thank God you picked up." Greg's voice was tense. "I know you've got a lot going on with Emily, but we've got a situation at the new farm. I hate to ask, but we need someone out there or we could lose everything." "How long?" Mark asked flatly. "A month, maybe more," Greg said hesitantly. "I'm sorry. I know it's a lot to ask." "I'll figure something out," Mark replied, already trying to calculate how he could possibly leave Emily. "Just give me a day or two." Mark drove home, his mind racing. A month away from Emily when every day could be precious? But if he didn't go, they could lose the business. How would he provide for her then? As he pulled into the driveway, he saw the lights on in the house. Sarah, his kind-hearted neighbor, had been watching Emily while he was at the hospital. She'd been a godsend since Karen's passing. As he walked up the path, he could hear laughter coming from inside, a sound that had become all too rare in recent months. The door opened before he could reach for his keys, and there stood Sarah, her auburn hair in a messy ponytail, a smudge of flour on her cheek. "Mark, you're home early," she said, but her smile faded as she saw the look on his face. "What happened?" Before he could answer, Emily's voice called out, "Daddy, come see what Sarah and I made." Mark plastered on a smile and stepped inside. Emily was at the kitchen table surrounded by cookie dough and sprinkles, her face lighting up as she saw him. "We made your favorite, chocolate chip with M&Ms, Emily said proudly, holding up a misshapen cookie. Mark swept her into his arms, hugging her tightly, trying to savor the moment. "They look delicious, sweet pea. Why don't you go wash up and we'll have some with milk?" As Emily scampered off, Sarah touched Mark's arm. "Mark, what happened at the doctor's?" she asked gently. Mark's facade crumbled. In a low voice, he recounted Dr. Jameson's words, each one feeling like a dagger to his heart. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh, Mark," she whispered, pulling him into a hug. "I'm so sorry." Mark let himself be held, drawing strength from her embrace, but then he remembered Greg's call. "There's more," he said, running a hand through his hair. "Greg needs me to go to the new farm. I can't leave Emily, but if I don't go, we could lose everything." Sarah's brow furrowed. "What about Emily's medication? Don't you have to pick that up weekly?" Mark nodded, despair washing over him. Yeah, and they'll only release it to me or a family member. I don't know what to do, Sarah. I can't be in two places at once. A determined look crossed Sarah's face. What if there was a way I could legally get Emily's medication? Mark looked at her confused. But you're not family. They won't release it to you. They would, Sarah said slowly. If I was your wife. The words hung in the air, shocking in their simplicity. Mark stared at her, wondering if he had heard correctly. Are you proposing we get married? Sarah's cheeks flushed, but she kept her gaze steady. It would just be on paper. I could take care of Emily, get her medication, and you could go save the business. Then, when you get back, we can get it annulled if you want.